Hey, what's going on, guys? Today's video, I'm just going to go over some things new and returning players might want to know. There's some in-depth stuff. It's kind of like tips and tricks, but yeah, more in-depth, I guess. And I'm just going to get right into it. Starting off, right when you load the game up here in the upper right, you can see your gateway, which will show you different pings and what's closest. Some people think they need to pick a certain one because it'll lock them, but it doesn't lock you at all. You can literally freely pick whenever you want, and your characters will always be there. So always just pick the lowest ping, or you can hit auto select. And when you play with friends, it's completely fine because you'll just go to where their ping's at when you join them, or vice versa. So the game's pretty lenient with that. Now, jumping on to the character screen, there's a few things you should know. If you hover over your character banner on the right, it'll tell you what league it's in. So Standard League or Dawn of the Hunt. Yeah, so the current league is Dawn of the Hunt. So if you want the best currency rates and stuff, you'll probably want to make a character on there. But even if you play in the Standard League, you're going to have all the same features. So it's basically the same game. Now there's 4 different types of game modes you can play, I guess you could say, and at any point you can transfer your character down a tier, but you can't go back up a tier. So let's start with the lowest tier, which is just the normal Dawn of the Hunt League, which is a standard character in Dawn of the Hunt. Let's see right here, you have your Standard League, Dawn of the Hunt. You're probably always going to want to play in the newer league if you're making a new character, and if you have an old character, then you can play in your old league if you would like. The 4 things is you have standard, so just on the hunt, you click on it, boom, that's it. That's all you gotta do. Then you have standard solo self-found, which means everything is by yourself. There's no currency exchanges. You can't play with other players. It's literally all by yourself. You can't trade items, can't play with friends. So if you want to play with friends, then I would recommend just playing the normal one. And then you can tier down into hardcore, which means if your character is killed, then your character won't be deleted, but he'll be dropped down to the standard league. But you can also check both boxes, and it can be solo self-found and hardcore, which is like the hardest core, I guess you could say. Now you can always kind of backtrack, like you can go down towards the standard league, but you can't go back up. So if you start off in hardcore solo self-found, you could get your character out of hardcore by dying, and you're in the just normal self-found. But also, if you are in solo self-found but your friends want to play with you, then at the menu with your character, you can click on this league migration right here on the right hand side, and all you do is find a character who is in your solo self-found and in whatever league or whatever season you're in. So if you made a character in Dawn of the Hunt solo self-found, you'll click on here and it'll show you your solo self-founds. You can click on that character and you can migrate it just to the normal server so you can play with friends. So you can always go back, but you can't go up. So I can't like go to solo self-found after I've been in a normal league, or you can't go to hardcore. So that's some things to note. So if you want, you can always start at the very hardest and then trickle your way back down, or just avoid all that and play normal. I was probably way too in-depth with all that, but that's fine. Some quick little tips when you first load into the map if it's your first time playing. They made the tutorial a little easier to understand, so right off the bat it'll drop you a weapon, and then if you look around a little bit you find a chest which will drop you an offhand weapon, unless you're using a 2-hand weapon, which I think all starting characters start with like offhand and main hand weapon. Could be wrong though. If you venture a little bit and look around, you'll find a chest, and that'll give you a skill gem. And then once you beat the first boss, you will be in this town of Clearfell. This isn't necessarily a tutorial on the starter stuff. I will should have a starter build, so I'll probably be doing some build videos and stuff. Now if you're solo self-found, then when you open your stash it'll be empty because you're by yourself. But if you're not, if you're in a normal game, you'll see all your stash stuff across characters, and same with hardcore, it'll have its own stash. You'll have the hardcore stash with all your hardcore characters and your normal standard stash with all that, which my tabs look a little wonky here because I bought stash tabs, which is recommended if you actually are playing the game quite a bit. You can get by with the normal stash tabs for a while, but once you start getting into Endgame, you're gonna want stuff to separate all your shenanigans you're getting, which I will be going over like a in-depth crafting video later on, so be on the lookout for that. All right, the first thing you should note when looking around, they made it a lot easier to tell what you should be doing on the map. So if you look around, you can see like this is highlighted, which means I haven't done this yet. But if it's just a skull or a skull with a circle around it, or a chest, like these things are kind of, you can do them, but they're irrelevant. And when you hover over it, it'll tell you what map it's on. So these are on Grellwood. This is on Grellwood. But the ones you really want to be looking out for are anything with a plus sign next to it, or there's like a entry, it looks like a doorway dungeon next to a skull. So this, if you look right here, the King in the Mist, it has a little plus line. He's crossed out, which means I've done it. So typically when I go through an area, I'll do the whole story, and if I stumble across something, I'll do it. If not, I'll finish the entire act, and then I'll come look at my map and I'll backtrack and see, okay, I've done that plus sign, done that one, haven't done that one. So I hover over it, see where it's at. Orgrimmar Farmlands. So I'll go to Orgrimmar Farmlands, then I'll find this. And that's in all acts, and even when you redo the acts, so once you beat Act 3, there's currently only 3 acts, you'll go back to Act 1 and restart it, but it'll be harder and you'll keep all your stuff. And it'll have more plus signs, so you can do stuff again and you can get... And the reason you want to do these plus signs is because they will give you points to put in your skill tree, and they'll also give you permanent buffs, like a permanent health buff, permanent like fire resist, cold resist, stuff like that. Which the game does drop you into negative resist throughout the acts, so that'll just help keep you afloat. There's also a total of 100 spirit that you can collect, which the first one is in Act 1, right here, King of the Mist. The second one is in Act 3, it's the Bog Witch, and then the third one is in Act 3 again, the Bog Witch again. So yeah, once you get to the Bog Witch the last time, that's all your spirit, and then you can just get spirit through weapons and items. You're gonna be getting a lot more currency this go around, so whenever you get something like Orbs of Transmutation and Orbs of Augmentation, you should always be using those on items if you have items equipped. So let's say you get something to drop or you buy something and it has one perk on it. Well, you can click on this, boom, give it another perk if you want. Something to note with all your items in your game, if you look right here, I'm holding Alt down and it's showing the tier on the right of that perk, and it's showing what it is. So it's a prefix or a suffix. In the game, the way it works is you get 3, you can have a max of 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. So if you look at my gear, I have 1, 2, technically I have 4, but that's because if you look on the right, these two are grouped together, so the stats are getting kind of split. So I'm getting multiple things, but it's still counted as 1. So I have 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. Right here, right here. And most pieces of gear have an intrinsic like trait. Like this has 5% increased movement speed just built into it. And you can also utilize things like artifice orbs to give it sockets and put sockets in, which sockets can now go over each other. So anytime you have a piece of gear with a socket, empty socket, like this one's empty, which there's a reason I don't put a one in there, but you'd normally just grab one of your runes. It doesn't really matter early on, you can just socket whatever. And if I click on it, it'll want to overlap it, which I don't, but you can just overlap your runes. So you're not locked into your runes, so you can constantly put new runes in. Also, your flasks, as you're playing the campaign, you definitely want to make sure you're using Orbs of Transmutation and Augmentation on your flasks. Because normally when you get them, they're like this or white. And then you can add stuff to them and that makes it a lot stronger, a lot easier. So now that you have all your gear modified and augmented, they'll at least have 2 perks on them, and you'll be finding gear that has more than 2. I wouldn't really recommend using exalted orbs too early in the game until you kind of know what you're doing, because that's kind of the main currency for traders, which I'll talk about in a sec. But the other big one is regal orbs. This will change an item from blue with 2, and it'll give it a 3rd perk and turn it into a rare item like these gold. So now it has 2 prefixes and 1 suffix. Prefix and suffix go with a lot of different things. So out in the world you can find a strongbox, which if it's unidentified, you can use one of these scroll of wisdoms on it. You just click on it, and off your map, like it's still on my cursor, and I'll click on that strongbox and it'll identify it. And then you can actually upgrade strongboxes, so you can add modifiers with these to it, or you can augment it, you can regal it, you could exalt it and corrupt it if you want, which I've done some like that, and it's not really worth it right now. So there is normally a vendor where you can gamble, so he has a bunch of different items, pretty much every item: weapon, armor, shields, rings, belts, which you can do. I would not recommend because it's kind of expensive early on. Once you've been playing a while, you have a lot of money, so maybe you can do it if you want, but it's still not really worth it. But if you do it, it'll give you a complete random piece of that gear. So, see, I want a random spear. Boom. It can be any spear, it can be any quality, it could even be a unique spear. But typically, like this one, I just spent 868 and it's only worth 24 gold, and it's not very good. So stay away from that if you can. There's also a currency exchange vendor, which I'll show you in my hideout. If you're on your map on the right side, you can see different things, and you start unlocking like hideouts and the trials. You can find all your trials here, but I'll just show you the currency exchange real quick from my hideout. So currency exchange, it's pretty much every currency in the game, I guess you could say. You wouldn't really think of them like that, but you can say I want an exalted, and I want to sell a divine, and it shows you the ratio, 112.5 to 1. So to get a good amount, you could do, well, it just changed 113, so I could literally just punch that in, boom, place order if I wanted to, but I don't really need to right now. You can find a lot of things in here. You can find your jeweler's orbs all the way up to perfected, which are pretty expensive. The lesser ones aren't very expensive, so once you start getting into like Act 2 and Act 3, you could definitely buy some of these. You can buy 80 of them for 1 exalted, which is pretty good because they're very cheap. Like, you find them pretty easily. But if you don't know those, see, I have a couple in here. They literally just, on your skills, you can right click on it, and these top skills are like intrinsic and level up with your weapon or with you. But these skills, I already have them maxed out, but they start off with 2, and you can right click on it and it'll give it a 3rd slot, which you can put the support gems, up to 3 support gems. Like, I don't really need one on here, but if I click on this, boom, gives it another slot. I'll go over an in-depth crafting guide in another video, which I didn't really figure all the crafting stuff out until recently. And there's definitely things you want to do, like not corrupt your stuff until it's maxed out with qualities, sockets, just all that goody stuff. Yeah, I've been playing this game non-stop since this season came out, and I've been learning a lot of stuff the hard way, so hopefully this will help you guys out. If you're in a guild, it's also pretty helpful because your guild can just put stuff they don't need in a stash tab and you can snag it out of there. There's a few things in your settings you might want to know. If you go over to game, you can add a filter, which you can download. I'm using Filter Blade, and you can customize it within the website, how strong you want the filter. So if you're a newer player, you probably don't want it that strong. I have mine on like pretty strong, so I'm only seeing certain things. And it also makes things look cooler when they drop and sound cooler, so it's definitely worth doing. The game gets pretty cluttered with items later on, and this will just hide a lot of the clutter. Now in interface, there's a lot of cool features you can go through and read. For your item, I always show my sockets. That's just right here on my weapons. They'll be hidden and you have to hover over them to show them, but I just have them on all the time. Under gameplay, I like showing life and mana levels, just pretty much all this stuff checked on for the most part. And then here, allies and enemies, this just has your health bar over your character and over all your allies and all the enemies, so you can target ones. You can change your cursor. That's the options. There's quite a bit in here you can play around with, so I'll go over another video with more of the end game stuff and your atlas trees, fighting all those bosses. People who play a lot see all these all the time, so yeah, if you are someone who plays this game a lot, leave some stuff in the comments below for new and returning players, some little tips they might need to know. There is one more thing. So with your Ascendancy, you are not locked into it anymore. It used to be you'd pick your class. You're still locked in your class, which is fine. That's how it should be. But now if you go through and do a trial, you'll unlock an Ascendancy. And it used to be locked into your Ascendancy, but now you can redo the trial and change your Ascendancy. So don't feel too pressured into your Ascendancy. And most classes have 3. Some classes have 2, some have 3. And currently we don't have all the classes in the game yet or all the Ascendancies, so lots more is going to be changed and worked on until the game's fully released. Yeah, I think I'll end the video with that, and I stream quite a bit, so if you guys want to come watch me stream, you can. I play this game quite a bit. I play a bunch of other games too, though. I think I'm going to make another video covering more of the like end game stuff and maybe some leveling build guides for different classes. So I just started playing through again with other classes. And if you want to know my like end game build that I'm currently using, it is quite powerful. I'm still tweaking some stuff though. So I'm using a spear and a scepter because I'm using a lot of spirit, which if you can see all my stuff on the left, you can right click on these, and if they're spinning, that means it's using your spirit. But you can see on the right over here, this bar down here is showing your spirit. But yeah, I have a lot of spirit being used for defense, offense, making my build lazy, I guess you could say. I'm using a malice for extra crit. Kind of weird. I literally run maps with 1 button, and then I fight bosses with 3 buttons, but I only spam 1 button, so it's kind of like a 1 button build almost. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.